This is Vicinity 95.3 FM, Ikejile, Ijesha. The time is 12 o'clock. I am Oluwafunke, Israel with Global News. First deadline. Federal government files 13-count charge against senior military officers over alleged coup. And Burkina Faso's junta intensifies crackdown on civil society organizations. And Iran's foreign ministry condemns U.S. seizure of its cargo ship. Now the news in full. The federal government has filed a 13-count charge before the Federal High Court in Abuja against 6 individual, 2 retired senior military officers and a 7 police inspector over an alleged plot to wage war against the country and commit acts of terrorism. The defendant, retired Major General Mohammed Ghana, retired Naval Captain Erasmus Victor, and Inspector Ahmed Ibrahim Zakari Moro, among others, are scheduled to be arraigned on Wednesday, April 22nd, before Justice Joyce Abdulmalik. The former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timprier Silva, who is at large, was also listed in the charge filed by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and signed by the Director of Public Prosecution, Rotimi Oyedepo, accused the defendants of offenses ranging from treason, terrorism, and failure to disclose security intelligence and money laundering linked to terrorism financing. Recall in March, family members of the detained officers appealed to President Bola Tinubu to ensure that the suspects were tried in an open court. Away from Nigeria, more than 200 civilians held captive in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo by armed group linked to Islamic State have been rescued in a joint army operation. Ugandan soldiers working with their Congolese counterparts targeted a camp controlled by the Allied Democratic Forces military group that has its origins in Uganda. The Uganda People's Defense Forces said the raid targeted a Uganda group operating in eastern Congo, the Allied Democratic Forces, which pledged allegiance to the self-styled Islamic State some decades ago. The several Allied Democratic Forces fighters were killed and a cache of weapons was recovered during the raid. Children were among those freed, the youngest being a 14-year-old. Burkina Faso's military has intensified crackdown on civil society groups. It has dissolved 118 organizations, many engaged in human rights work. The authorities cited the July 2025 law on freedom of association but did not provide any justification. President of Observatory, Crystal Binta Sidebe Kaskun, said the mass dissolution of civil society group is the Burkina Faso's junta. But the Burkina Faso's junta is the latest effort to silence dissent and avoid scrutiny of its grim human rights record. It said the decision reinforces a climate of fear that is crippling independent civil activity. The military government action reflects a broader repression that began after the military seized power in September 2022. Ever since the takeover, the authorities have targeted non-governmental organizations, independent media, and peaceful dissent, steadily narrowing civil space. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met in Cairo with U.S. envoy Massad Boulos to discuss developments in Sudan and Lebanon. During the meeting, el-Sisi praised U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to secure a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. However, new developments have complicated the situation. Shortly after Trump's announced plans for renewed negotiation with Iran, U.S. forces sealed an Iran-flagged cargo ship near the Strait of Hormuz, raising questions about the future of those talks. Iran has condemned the seizure and indicated it has no current plans to participate in upcoming negotiations with Washington. Meanwhile, Israel confirmed another round of discussions with Lebanon, signaling continued diplomatic engagement on that front. You are listening to Vicinity 95.3 FM, transmitting live from Ikejile, Ijesha. Global News will continue shortly.
Music. Entertainment, politics, all on your darling station, Vicinity
7. Now the rest of the news. Iran's foreign ministry on Tuesday has condemned the recent seizure by U.S. forces of a cargo ship allegedly attempting to evade a blockade in Iranian ports, calling the incident a form of maritime piracy and terrorist act. A statement said it violated international law as well as 2 weeks ceasefire with the U.S. that began on April 7th. It demanded the release of the Iranian flag vessel as well as its crew and their families. The ministry said the Islamic Republic of Iran will use all its capacities to defend its national interests and security and to safeguard the right and dignity of Iranians, asserting the responsibility for further escalation will rest with the U.S. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, said on Monday that American forces have directed 27 commercial vessels to turn around or return to an Iranian port since the naval blockade of Iranian ports began on April 13. Bangladesh has reaffirmed its commitment to democracy, global peace, and inclusive development, with State Minister for Foreign Affairs Shama Obaid Islam highlighting key priorities at the Dhaka International Forum on Peace and Security. Speaking at the high-level panel moderated by Senegalese Foreign Minister Sheikh Nyang, the state minister said Bangladesh, under the leadership of Prime Minister Tariq Rahman, is advancing on a new democratic trajectory aimed at building an equitable and prosperous state. She commended Senegal for being the first African country to recognize Bangladesh as an independent state and stressed the need to further strengthen bilateral ties. She expressed interest in enhancing collaboration in renewable energy, ICT, labor markets, and infrastructure development with Oman, Chad, and Switzerland. A bit of sports. The Football Association has introduced new rules to limit earning in football amid growing concern over the long-term impact on players' brain health. The decision follows emerging research suggesting that earning ball creates a brief pulse of energy that passes into the brain at the moment of impact. Football authorities said the measures are designed to reduce potential risk while research continues into the long-term effect, with calls increasing for a coordinated international response to protect players at all levels of sports. 10 Global News, another look at the major headlines. The federal government has filed a 13-count charge before the Federal High Court in Abuja against 6 individuals, including 2 retired senior military officers and a 7th police inspector, over an alleged plot to wage war against the country and commit acts of terrorism. I told you that the Burkina Faso military government has intensified its crackdown on civil society and dissolved 118 organizations. The authorities cited a July 2025 law on freedom of association but did not provide any justification. And lastly, you heard Iran's foreign ministry on Tuesday has condemned a recent seizure by U.S. forces of a cargo ship allegedly attempting to evade a blockade on Iranian ports. And just before we go, the last line: the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. That was Global News. It was edited by Dayo Folonsho. I am Oluwafunke Israel. Thanks for listening. Please stay tuned for news nationwide at 6 o'clock. Good afternoon.